Well, I was sad that we don't get to hear from my friend Jim Micah, who is a really great human being who's been with Savoyards a very long time and currently carrying the torch. I think he's the chairman of the board. Is that right, Rob? Did I see Rob joined? Um, and he's a really good storyteller and he has a lot of stories. So it's too bad we don't get to hear from him. But as many of you may know, I spent some of my wayward youth with Summer Savoyards. Starting in 1976, I joined the chorus of Savoyards. I was greeted at the door by Jim's brother, Alan Micah, who was an amazing human being in many ways. And I loved him so much that they actually asked me to do the eulogy at his funeral. He was an awesome human being. I was in Savoyards with some people who became known later, by me anyway, as the Trinity Mafia, including at least one person who is on this call right now. I see you smiling there, Mr. Rick. Come to find out, there were a lot of Trinity folks who were just about my age, in their teens in the 70s, who joined Summer Savoyards, and we learned just last week why that might have been, that there were quite so many, because of a partnership that was done between Trinity under Jack Hooton and the Summer Savoyards. So, man, that explains all kinds of interesting things. I really kind of wish I hadn't gone to First Presbyterian in the 70s and I'd been coming to Trinity, because it sounds like you guys had more fun, at least as teenagers anyway. But I digress. I have prepared literally a 5-minute presentation about my life in the Summer Savoyards, because that's what I've got information on. But I did want to spend a few moments speaking about the group because it is the 60th anniversary this year. Well, not the anniversary. We've debated this at board meetings. It's the 60th production of the Summer Savoyards this summer. And in honor of that, there is going to be a gala. And of course, there's been much debate. But after much debate, they've decided the gala will be on video. So watch for that sometime this summer. Rob or Rick may know when this summer it's coming, but I know I get to be the MC and do all of my parts alone. It's going to be assembled on video, and it should be really, really cool. I'm looking forward to that very, very much. But anyway, I wanted to get that out there. So look for that. It'll be on social media, and I'll talk about it certainly and all of that. But my time in Summer Savoyards started in 1976 when I was in the chorus. And soon after that, I met wonderful Trinity people like Rick Shoemaker and like my best buddy, Mr. Ted Roper. Whoops, there he is, Mr. Ted Roper. That's me on the right. And yes, that's my cigarette behind Ted Roper's right shoulder there. You are all seeing that, I hope. And Ted, you might recognize, because this is about the age he was when he hung out at Trinity a lot. And of course, his big brother Wally Roper and his big sister Felicia Roper were also very much involved in Trinity. So anyway, the very next year, in 1976, much to my amazement and surprise, I was elevated from being an understudy to being the bosun, the person who gets to sing, "He's an Englishman." But I don't have a recording of myself singing that. But what I do have is a recording from 1977 that's 2 minutes and 20 seconds long of me in the middle part harmony, Ted Roper on the right here at the bottom part harmony, and a Metropolitan opera tenor, Rick Leach, singing the high part. It's one of the highlights of my musical career, and it happened in the second year of my Summer Savoyards time. So without further ado, a British tar from 1977. To my ears, Rick Leach sounds exactly like he sounded then, and Ted and I both sound like we are on helium. So here we are.
His eyes should flash with an neon fire, his brow with scorn be wrong. He never should bow down to a domineering frown or the tag of a tyrant's tongue. His foot should stamp, and his throat should growl, his hair should twirl, and his face should scowl, his style should match, and his dress protrude, and this should be his customary attitude. His foot should stamp, and his throat should growl, his hair should twirl, and his face should scowl, his eyes should flash, and his breast protrude, and this should be his customary attitude. His attitude, his attitude, his
Unfortunately, you could tell they had the microphones in the orchestra, so you couldn't hear Rick Leach's really great high note. But the fun part that you can't see, that I still remember to this day, Rick Leach was very much a hot dog. He was a show-offy kind of guy. And in the middle part, in between the two a cappella verses, while we're doing the hornpipe, he is doing clap push-ups on the stage, you know, where you push up and then clap and then go back down again. And then he stands up and he breathes heavy in that pause and then sings again beautifully because he was a hot dog. But anyway, my other fond memory of 1977, by the way, this was in the Forum. It was the first year of the opening of the Forum, and Grant Best arranged for us to perform there, which was very exciting. But my other fond memory from this particular show is that afterwards, a nice gentleman came by and told me he really enjoyed my performance and shook my hand and walked off. And somebody came up to me and said, "Do you know who that was?" And it was Carmen Savoca. Told me he really enjoyed my performance. So I have held on to that for a while in my dotage. Here are some other characters that I did in Summer Savoyards. I ended up in Pinafore 2 shows later as Sir Joseph Porter, KCB. And in the actual show, I had some fluffy sideburns, which we referred to as my pussy kitties. And it was great fun. I got to be over the top. Here's one where I was the king of Utopia Limited. And the weird thing about this show is that this was a publicity photo. This was not during the show. During the show, we actually put on, we would never in a million years do this these days, but we actually put brown makeup all over our faces to attempt to look more Polynesian and didn't think a thing of it. And I look back in that in horror. I mean, what were we thinking? But the chorus people especially, who had far less clothing than I did it all over their bodies. Times sure have changed. That was uncool then, and it's way uncool now. From memories, I kind of like this picture better because I get to show off my costume. But yeah, that's something I remember from that year. Here is when I was a very model of the modern Major General. And the fun thing is these fun little things glued to my face did not stay on. And so every time I made an entrance, I was doing this because my things were falling or my thing was falling, but I tried to make it part of the shtick, and it was great fun. You may be able to tell that this was near my highest weight ever, up close to 400 pounds. I wish this showed more of this particular jacket because our genius costume designer, Stephen Delarossano, had this inverted V on the front. And even though I felt as big as a house at 384 pounds, I looked very snappy with this inverted V on the front of my jacket. It was really quite amazing. I think I have another one. Nope, that's it. So that's the Summer Savoyards. Great fun, Gilbert and Sullivan, and watch for the 60th anniversary celebration coming to a computer near you sometime this summer. And if you know any young people who need experience in the chorus of an operetta or who might like to try out for a lead, because that's one of the things Savoyards does best, is give people a head start getting into operetta, which can lead to musical theater or lead to opera, as it has for so many people. Tell them to keep a lookout for Savoyards. They're still going strong. And next year, a real show, I'm thinking. This year on computer, but next year a real show. So thank you for putting up with my impromptu. Well, looks like it was more like a 10-minute presentation. I lied. I said it was going to be 5, but
Greg, can I add a couple stories?
sure.
Number one is, Ricky Leach sang in the Trinity Choir, don't you?
Oh, did he really? I thought he
Yeah.
was involved with Trinity. I didn't realize he was in the choir.
He
was
sang in the choir,
That's great.
and one of our ministers, people can figure it out, maybe if they go back in time, finally said, would you get that kid out of the choir? He is singing all the time, no matter where he is, walking down the halls or whatever. So I guess I can say that was Art Dorsum, because anyway, so that's one story. And the other is, you and your father have a bit of a match, because at a place called Ogant's, which was a summer choir camp, Sir David Wilcox was the director at one year, and Sir David Wilcox went up to your father and said, your voice is outstanding. And to have Sir David Wilcox tell you that is special. So
now, I'm surprised I have not heard Dad tell that story before.
Well,
that's really cool.
Can't get him to tell that. Yeah,
I will. I'm going to see him in just a little bit here for lunch, so I'll have to ask him about that.
Absolutely.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Greg, how do they decide on the rotation? Sort of, is it like Shakespeare, Royal Shakespeare in England, where they do the whole cycle every 7 years, or is it? How do they?
Well, there's always some tension between the artistic purists who would like to do it that way, and the people minding the budget who want us to do Pinafore, Mikado, or Pirates of Penzance every year. And usually those two discuss, and Pinafore will come up more often, and Mikado will come up more often, although that's a dicey one these days, because again, opera companies have been so used to doing what is really, really not cool, to put themselves in all kinds of body makeup to impersonate another race. And that's what Savoyards did with Mikado for years. So I wouldn't want to participate in a Mikado like that. I would want to see it reconceived in some way, unless we just happen to have an influx of Asian people willing to try out for some reason. But Pirates is particularly fun. There's something about the music in Pirates that I love. But yeah, that's how they do it. There's always some money in the back of people's minds, making sure that the coffers are going to stay above board. Well, thank you so much for paying attention.
Some of the Trinity names that Greg has referred to are Scott Purdy, Eric Kirch,
Yvonne Aythorne,
Jillian Aythorne, and of course Clifford Aythorne, as Rob mentioned last week, and lots more.
What's the name of that gentleman who actually comes to services on holidays? He travels up, and what the heck? Peter. Peter. Former Trinity guy. Oh, Peter. He's in solar energy now. What the heck is his name?
Johnson.
I can't. Pardon?
Boston's grandson, Peter Johnson.
Johnson. Yes.
PJ.
He's Bobby's son?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I wish I'd had a conversation with her about that. Darn it.
He sang in our choir too. Yeah.
He was another hot dog.
Those were the Carolyn Albaugh days that Ricky was, when Ricky Leach sang with us, it was Carolyn Albaugh who was the choir director. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think Art Dorsum is to blame, perhaps, for Ricky Leach getting the nickname Screech.
Yeah.
That stuck.
But that was pretty interesting. I was in the choir. I was never in the Savoyards, but yeah, Janine and I would be in the choir, and if we were fooling around, we got that look from our mother. It was one of these looks. It was like that. That was all it was. Then we figured it out. We figured out that it was better not to do anything else, in the choir up there after we got that look. And
Yeah, we can go this summer tour.
It was nice to see the banners in the newsletter of your parents. Have you seen that yet?
no, I didn't know the pictures were in the newsletter.
A couple of years ago, I had to produce a talk on him, not being any kind of expert, because the theater group we go to London with every year, we were going to see a Serling production in London. And so I volunteered to do it. And I read everything I could get my hands on and went through the cycle and everything else. And it was just fascinating. But in the group were people from Ithaca. And when I said that he grew up in Binghamton, she said, "Oh, no, he was from Ithaca." I said, "Well, he had Ithaca connections, but I'm sorry. He moved here when he was 2 and grew up in Binghamton."
They had a cottage on the lake. I think that might be what she's thinking about.
I think so, but they wanted to claim him and I wouldn't let her.
No, he was definitely a Binghamton guy. Yeah, it's and Rick and I know that, and anybody else that went to West Junior knows that every single desk in West Junior had his initials carved into it. Every single desk.
When I worked on the stage crew with Helen Foley and also on stage at Central High School for many days, all of them for my 3 years at Central, it was always comforting that my mom and Rod Serling were friends on the street from one another, and carved initials. Speaking of carved initials, Adrian, his initials were carved on the door frame of the passageway from the stage to offstage right in the back room. And I went with the Madrigal Choir, I think, to Central. We did some recording there, and it was gone. Larry Casson, I said, "Whatever happened to the," and he smiled and laughed, and he said, "Follow me, Rick." We went into his office. Under glass in a framed box is that door frame with Rod Serling's initials on it, hanging on the wall of Larry Casson's office. I thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, he's got some great stories about Rod Serling. And fortunately, as part of the 50th anniversary celebration of the first Twilight Zone that happened, gosh, was it 10 years ago now? We actually somehow got the rights to do a live staged performance of 2 different Twilight Zone episodes, complete with sound effects and music, and it was a big deal. And it was live. It was the only way CBS would grant the rights. We couldn't record it and broadcast it later. And so I was pleased to not only meet Anne Serling, who wrote that book that Adrian mentioned, but I got to meet his wife, who has since passed away. And it was really just all Serling all the time at WSKG for a while there. And that's when I really got to know Larry and his amazing wealth of Serling trivia. And of course, Rod wrote episodes based on Recreation Park and based on the Greyhound station in downtown Binghamton and other things that people have said, well, this may not look like Binghamton, but this one is about Binghamton. And of course, Helen Foley shows up in one of the episodes.
Yeah, I wrote one about Helen Foley.
It's great. It's really cool. And of course, he's famous for saying, if anybody ever questions about Binghamton, he said, "Everybody has a hometown, Binghamton's mine." And then he has some more verbiage about what a hometown means to someone.
Oh.
That's his quote. "Everybody has a hometown, Binghamton's mine."
And Brian at WSKG is quite an expert on Rod Serling also. I've had a lot of conversations with him.
Yeah. He's the one who managed to get the rights from CBS somehow. Yeah. I was very impressed.
The production in London was wonderful. In fact, it was so successful that they had to bring it back a year or so later. But the interesting thing is, it's mostly a young people's audience, and they have a whole different take on Rod Serling. It's very interesting.
Well, I'm teaching in a middle school and a high school, and I have advisory with the middle school kids. So they don't have to stay, but some of them like to just stay and talk to me about whatever. And one little boy asked me, so he's like He's like 13. Yeah, he's about 13. So he asked me, he said, do you think we're ever going to do time travel? So anyway, I think that these kids are going to be very interested in that time travel thing that Rod Serling kicked off. Yeah. So what is your opinion? What are your opinions? Do you think we're going to be able to do time travel?
Well, some of the physicists would say we already are noticing particles that will end up being here before they left point A, they ended up at point B and stuff like that. So I think a physicist would tell you it's already happening, at least on the particle level.
If it happens, we have to be careful about killing our grandfathers, in which case we disappear.
I put it up there with a string theory. It's just something I sort of know what it is, but it's beyond my comprehension.
Yeah, the Higgs boson and all of that fun
I
stuff.
mean, sci-fi writers love it, and there are lots of things about time travel now,
Right.
including the paradoxes like that.
So did we lose Susan Sherwood?
My Wi-Fi bumped me out for 20 minutes, which is why I disappeared.
You'd think she'd have an opinion on the technical ability of time travel.
Right.
Oh, I'm even more ignorant. So no,
You haven't done it yet, huh, Susan?
I'm going to defer to the experts on this one. All right, sorry.
I just had to go there, Susan, had to go there. But thank you. I thought your answers were very intelligent. And, you know, the nice thing about that young man is he thinks that I know a lot. So I'll just wow him with my new information on Monday. I was thinking about this time travel thing, and you know what I came up with?
What's that?
Go ahead.
No, the young guy, the kid.
Oh, gotcha. That's what you're going to
Pull the
say.
wool over children's eyes. I was thinking about time travel, and I have string theory here. String theory. You look it up and you write me a paper.
There you go.
Right. You should also tell him to go and watch Back to the Future.
Yeah.
That was one that really popularized the idea.
Writing that one down, John. Writing it down right now. Thanks. Well, yeah, it's a pretty.
Those of us of a certain age grew up with a television program called The Time Tunnel.
Some idea.
I remember that.
There are also some very poignant episodes of Star Trek that deal with time travel.
There's one that I particularly like because when they go back to see if they can change the course of history and eliminate Nazis, Captain Kirk falls in love with, I can't remember her first name, but it's Miss Keeler that he falls in love with in that episode.
You remembered it.
But it's kind of fun to see all of them dressed up in, gangster uniforms that time period.
Was it Kirk or was it Bones? I thought it was Bones.
I thought it was. It's always Kirk who falls in love with the woman, isn't it? I think it was in his contract. I can't believe he's 90. Well, this has been fun.
Yes, thank you, Greg, for stepping in. And I'm sure
The
that
least I could do. The very least.
I think I will pass on to Larry that there are requests to incorporate a little bit of Rod Serling into his
Oh,
presentation.
yeah. Oh, yeah.